Federalism is a big, big topic and concept in the Constitution and our plan of government. Federalism is dividing the government into two sections or three sections. So you have a federal or national government, you then have state government, and then you have local government. So we have three levels in the United States, whereas in England and other European countries, they have a unitary government where you just have one level, and that national level basically makes the decisions for all the local levels. You have a confederation, which we had in the Articles of Confederation and the Confederacy, where there is really no strong national, it's just done at the state level, and it's just a friendship. And then our system is basically combining the two. So we have a strong federal government and we have strong state governments, and we have different areas of basically jurisdiction. So we have what the Constitution states that the national government should do. There's 18 powers of the Congress. There's basically 5 powers of the president, and then there is the Supreme Court. So we have jurisdiction for basically powers like immigration is strictly to the national government, coining money, in regulating international trade, making treaties. These are all federal government, and the state governments cannot do this. Now, historically, states have been responsible for marriage, have been responsible for education, intra-state commerce, intra-banking. But those were the main issues. So if you needed to get a license to be a contractor, if you need a marriage license, if you needed to do business in a state, that would all be through the state. So when you look at a corporation is not chartered by the federal government, it's chartered by a state government. So you have an Articles of Incorporation in Delaware or Arizona, and that state runs that actual corporation and can remove the charter, or say if they're doing business, they have to follow the state laws. Then you have local government that also has their own jurisdiction and have what they're responsible for. So we have 3 different levels. Makes basically things more complicated. We have 50 different sets of alcohol laws, 50 sets of marriage laws, and drug laws and sentencing. We have a lot of different hodgepodge of laws in counties, in states, and with the national government. So most people in the United States believe that most of our decisions are best made locally, at the local level where people are closest. So if it's a choice between Washington, D.C. or in the town of Gilbert's better to make those decisions for the town than Washington, D.C. The state of Arizona or in Phoenix is much better than Washington because it's closer. So we like decentralization. We like the idea of federalism. It also takes power away from the federal government and gives us a limited form of government. The Constitution never said we wanted small government, but we wanted limited government and limited powers. So the framers basically divided powers in the federal government. They divided executive, legislative, judicial. They divided the legislative into two branches. And then they took the federal government and state government, divided that up. So their whole plan was to actually limit the power of government to make sure that there was no tyranny in the government and that you would have as much freedom as possible. So we're going to be talking a lot about federalism and different laws and issues, whether it's gay marriage, pot laws, alcohol laws, and grants, money that comes to the states. And, Obamacare is a great example of a law that actually expands the scope of the federal government and actually puts responsibility back on the states. It does 2 things, because there's supposed to be state exchanges, and then there's federal exchanges, and then there's state getting money from the federal government. So it's a great example of federalism and how federalism can work. So we'll be talking a lot about grants and revenue sharing and devolution, and also with federalism. So there's a lot of good topics to talk about, and hope that if you have any questions, feel free to ask.